Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another movie spoiler review. And in the theme of Father's Day Movie Month, we're going to go through some real testosterone filled, very dad centered kind of films. And I'm going to be doing two of them in a row here. And it's going to be a couple of days before Father's Day, but I really want to talk about this movie because I haven't seen this in quite a long time. Zack Snyder's 300, and I will be doing the sequel right after this video. And God, they do not make movies like this anymore. At least not so much. Because if if you show this movie to some people, like 20 something year old people today, I bet you like a few of them will be like, "Oh my God, it's toxic masculinity, blah blah blah," and it's like, this is like, you know, like just like it gets your motor running, Well, at least it builds. They really get the testosterone going. This is like a guys movie. Like Zack Snyder, for all his faults, knows who his audience is, and God, it just film is like man, it gets you amped. God, it's just like it just activates some part of your lizard brain where it's like that old, like, as much as we think we evolve as a human race, we still got that kind of like, caveman warrior type of mentality that's like the fight or flight reflex, that all that stuff is just, starts like, going to overdrive when you're watching certain things like this. And it's like watching Mortal Kombat movies. It's just like, or you hearing that song and you're just like, God, you just want to get into a fight. It's just like it builds up that like that emotion. And the cinematography in this is spot on. Like I said, for all Zack Snyder's faults, this really set him on the map. The 300 film, and this is the first time I actually seen Gerard Butler in anything. By the time I actually knew of Gerard Butler's name was like The Ugly Truth, which I did a review of that this past February, which you can check out on my YouTube channel. Which, by the way, please like and subscribe. Follow me in the links in the description below. My YouTube, TikTok, Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. God, and this movie is so much fun. But as a person who likes history, and I gotta say, because I did like watch a lot of Delia's Warrior. One of the first couple of episodes was Spartan versus Ninja. And you can learn a fair bit of stuff. It's just like very truncated information about a warrior's background. And of course, this film was based off of Frank Miller's comic 300, which you can look it up yourselves. It's only like a mini series. It didn't have much longevity, but from what I hear, is very good. And it's quite a surprising amount of people in this cast that are big deals now that I didn't even knew who they were back then. It's kind of funny looking back on certain movies and realizing who will be like big deals in the future. But yeah, man, this movie was a whole lot of fun. Now, of course, there's quite a few historical inaccuracies here and there, which I will bring up. But I highly encourage you guys to actually go online, like YouTube channel, where like I follow certain historical channels, like History Hit. I think it's History Hit that I follow on YouTube, detailing about like the historian brings up about the History Hit. Yeah, if you want to learn like the actual facts about the Spartans' daily lives and the warrior culture and things like that. Like, for example, we think of the Spartans as like legit military force, but they're more akin to a militia. Like an example there. Uh, but anyway, this movie stars Gerard Butler as Leonidas, King of Sparta, David Wyndham as Delios, a Spartan soldier, who you might recognize as that friar, uh, that friar in crap Van Helsing movie with Hugh Jackman. Lena Headley as the Game of Thrones queen, the Psycho, is Queen Gorgo, Queen of Sparta, wife to Leonidas, but also, little known fact, technically Spartans, or at least Sparta, didn't really have like an official like title of queen like that until like later on, uh, during the Hellenistic period. It's just, is this kind of a word. She had still a bit of an authority. She, uh, had influence in terms of the political nature of Sparta. And she had one of the most famous quotes, which was used in this film. Uh, uh, when they, in the movie they had somebody else say it, but in the historical accuracy, uh, when an Athenian woman, uh, uh, and her having an exchange, uh, 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 Gorgo tells this Greek woman only Spartan women can give birth to real men, essentially. Uh, and Leonidas was like it were her were her half uncle. So yeah, and they actually had a kid together. What was the kid's name? Uh, and these Greek names. So, pardon me because I'm gonna butcher these. Pleister, uh, Pleistarchus. We got Giovanni Semenino as the son. Dominic West as Theron, but wasn't actually like an historical figure in the events of the Spartans on the Thermopylae, the famous Thermopylae battle. This came up, Zack Snyder just came up with this particular character for this movie. Vincent Regan as Captain Artemis, the loyal captain and friend to Leonidas. Tom Wisdom as Astynos, as the captain's eldest son. Andrew Plevin as Daxos, an Arcadian, and a leader who joins with him and his team joins up with Leonidas. Andrew Tiernan as Aphiletes. Rodrigo Santorio as King Xerxes. And we got Michael Fassbender as Stelios. Stelios! Stelios! Contos! Stelios! I don't know why. That brought up, I don't know, that name just brought up like an episode of American Dad I haven't even thought of in so long. A young, spirited, and highly skilled Spartan soldier. And that's all the major players here. So the movie begins as Delios is narrating the birth and upbringing of Leonidas, who, uh, as we all seen the movie 300, the whole thing about if whoever Spartan son or the Spartan child in general who was born with any kind of deformity, they are cast out to the class below. But if you look it up, that's actually a myth. Uh, if a kid was born with some type of deformity or whatever wasn't essentially perfect from the jump, they were just abandoned at the foot of a mountain. And through historical records, like I said, you can look this up. Through historical records uh, and archaeological finds, there was no infant type of bones found at the particular mountain where the babies would have been officially cast away. What they did find was like bones of, or at least remains of adults ranging from 18 to like 35. So, so for right now, for what we know, those babies weren't just left there to die. Somebody took care of them or whatever the case may be. But no baby died. No, the babies were fine historically. But in terms of the movie, it's just kind of like kind of harsh. But Spartans were, like I said, after watching Delia's War and seeing like how they train and their weaponry and armor, these dudes were built Tonka tough. There's like brick shithouse walls of muscle and bronze. And their Spartan shields are like, you've seen Delia's Warrior, their shields are legit impenetrable. I'm pretty sure they can even stop maybe like a musket ball, at the highest level of how much that shield can probably take. Anything less of like modern firearms probably won't do dilly squat to this thing. That is built to take a lot of punishment. That was watching that being tested out. You can look it up online. The Spartan shield and its durability. It is insane how much punishment it can take, and that a Spartan shield is probably one of the most important weapons in a Spartan's armory. That is highly important because if you lost your shield, that was a disgrace to them. Because when you see that, because they build like the phalanx, they got like shield walls to help, build like a wall of the shields that protects the entire group. So if one is missing, then the whole entire thing comes down. So it's very important to, at the very least, have your shield close to you at all times. Because it doesn't just protect you, it protects the entire group. Their warrior mindset is just like on a whole nother tier level, because in terms of the harshest training that we know of, in terms of like soldiers, it's like like something like maybe like in terms of like modern day, like the closest things that we know of harsh military training like that would probably be North Korean military soldiers of today, and maybe like the Navy SEALs, in terms of like what we can think of like modern day like training and how harsh it is. But I think like for modern day, I think North Korean soldiers probably like got the harshest training, because I'm pretty sure you can look it up. They willing to lay down their lives for like making sure the entire unit is superior and strong. No room for error, kind of thing. And Spartans of ancient times, probably like in terms of the ancient times. It's probably something akin to that. There was no room for error with them. Yeah, they built Tonka tough. That is insane. That's what makes people like look at the Spartans as like one of the superior ancient warriors of all time. Uh, anyway, so uh, you see Leonidas go through this period called the uh, Agoge, is the Agoge, which in the movie it depicts, a young Leonidas after, you know, when he learned to like walk and speak, he's going through like training, like fighting hand to hand, and the training is brutal, uh, but also, you know, when he got a little older, he goes out in the wilderness, uh, you know, with nothing but maybe like some underwear or what they would have called what would be what we think of as underwear at that time, and uh, a wooden spear, and Leonidas hunted down and killed this wolf and came back, wearing its pelt, and he was crowned king at that point. Um, but according to like the history hit and what I've known from the historian there, the Agoge is not that harsh as depicted in the film. It's pretty much like uh it's like because it's not like they completely torn away from the mother, where it's like they go into this separate camp where they can't see their mother anymore, and it is like all day, all night, just training and as a warrior and what have you. No, it's kind of like akin to like him going to school for a few hours and then come back uh, to his parents for the evening, that kind of thing. Uh, uh, but in terms of the movie, it's like we need this kid to be a badass. We only get like true warriors and who knows what it is inside and out, has no scruples of laying down his life if need be in order to achieve his goal. Uh, uh, Either come back with your shield or on it kind of situation, which is a line in the film. So now, fast forward a little bit years later, Leonidas grown up, married to his uh, half sister, essentially. What was it, half sister or uh, uh, no, half niece, his half niece, Gurgo, essentially, which is didn't I know until you look it up. They didn't really, for obvious reasons, didn't want to point that out in the film. Why would he need to? Zack Snyder need to, but now they have a kid. In terms of deformity, you would think like them hooking up with a blood relative, half or not, uh, would have caused some type of defect, or at the very least, the homochromatic. I forgot what you call the label, where you got two different color eyes. At the very least, a kid like that comes from like relatives, doing the deed, would have something akin to that, in their birth. That would have been like not perfect in their eyes, but whatever. Uh, so Leonidas is, teaching this kid, the mindset of a warrior, and fight with your head and lead with your heart kind of situation. Then some emissaries from Persia, wielding, uh, uh, skulls of slain kings of other regions, And I want to mention here now, as much as we crap on Zack Snyder with his slow mos, I think in the 300 films, I think it fits. For some reason, I never got annoyed or bored or rolled my eyes whenever I see the slow mo in the 300 films. I don't know why, because every time I see in other films he directs, at a certain point I will start like getting kind of bored with the slow mo. But here, never, not once. Maybe just me. You can let me know in the comments below if you ever get tired of the slow mo even in 300. But anyway, so the emissary comes to Leonidas offering earth and water. Is everybody starts snickering, and Leonidas did warn him about, like, just so you know, before you speak. Which I love this line. It's like, it really, like, sets the tone, because the whole saying "don't kill the messenger" kind of thing. Leonidas explains to him, like, before you speak, just so you know, even the messenger will be held responsible as equally as his leader by what they say. So speak wisely. So he offers earth and water, and everybody starts laughing. And Gurgo speaks up for her husband, and sets the tone about what Sparta and her husband means as the leader of Sparta. And then the guy mentions, like, who is this woman to speak out of turn like this? And that's where you get the line where she says here, but in historical accuracy, she says it to an Athenian woman, but she says it here to this Persian emissary, because only Spartan women can birth Spartan men, which is kind of like a dope line in the way it's delivered here. Who is that? Peter Mensa, that's who plays the Persian messenger. And I gotta point out here, because there's certain, like, black people who plays Persians here and there. It's not a big deal, but it seems like maybe it's because it's the style, because I guess it's kind of similar to Frank Miller's comic book, where it seems like there's a shot of one bigger black dude who's comes from Persia, and like doing like a transition moment. Everything goes black, and he's just like gets really, really darker. Here it's like, which is like a transition thing, so it's not a big deal. It kind of stylistically looks great, but when it comes to Peter Mensa's Persian messenger, it seems like, I don't know, is this a cinematography that kind of makes his like skin more bronze, dark kind of thing? I don't know. It's just, you look at him. If you look him up, he doesn't look exactly like what he did in terms of his skin tone. Doesn't look exactly like it is in the movie. They did something. It's not like a big deal, but I guess they're trying to make sure they kind of give off a Persian kind of look to him. It's not a big deal. I just thought it's kind of, it still works, but I just kind of noticed, it's like, man, it's like he looks a little bit more bronze than he needs to be. But anyway, so in a typical kind of like mob fashion, whereas like, if you join up with Xerxes, you wouldn't have to end up like these other kings that defied him, and we took their territory anyway. But if you bow down to Xerxes, you would get all this kind of wonderful stuff, and you only can answer to him, but you'll gain all this kind of, wider lands and everything like that. And I love this look where, like, Leonidas gives, where he peers around to his people and then looks upon his wife. because this is like a, she's like a dope wife. It's probably like, like the ideal ride or die kind of wife that we, like most men would really would appreciate to have, where, you know, she says what she needs to say. She doesn't overstep her bounds, but she knows full well, like, like this is like my mate. She's my partner, and it's like, he looks over to her and she gives that kind of nod, and because after he casually walks this dude to this pit essentially, and him and his little, the messenger and his little cronies are held at, blade point, and is, the message is like, this is madness, madness, and you get the iconic line in movie history, and I'm not going to say it because I don't want to, because I need to do it justice. I need to do it justice. Hold on, where is that freaking thing? Ah, here we go.
This is Sparta!
And kick these fools. And that was like the most impressive kick in movie history too. And kicks this fool into this pit because, like, man, like his wife held it down, and that's what like many dudes would want. You want a wife like Gergo, here, where she like understands her husband's role and making sure, she is there for a console. She doesn't overstep her bounds, but she holds the fort down while he's out handling his business. And it's like, in terms of like movie couples, I need to do like a separate video about this in terms of like, my favorite movie couples of all time. Matter of fact, I need to, sorry, just 1 second, because that seems like a good idea. Because in terms of movie couples, man, she and Leonidas are up there. Hold on, I'm sorry, I need to do this. I don't want to lose my thought here. Uh, 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 hold on, there's another one. Like I did a movie review on that. It's like a long time ago. Yeah, there we go. Uh, mm. Oh man, that's a couple. I probably did like movie reviews of them already. Uh, in terms of like movie couples, and like there's like perfect examples that are my favorite that really holds it down. I know I know I'm missing another one. But I have to look it up later. I wrote down a few that I remember off the top of my head. But man, Gorgo is done a fantastic job in this movie, in terms of like how to, like the ideal, like how to be a freaking wife. Man, that is like, impressive. Uh, I'm in all of it. Anyway, so uh realizing the impending doom will eventually arrive at Sparta's borders, Leonidas goes to the top of the mountain to speak with the Ephors. I think that's what they are called, the Ephors, and their little uh, uh, this little mystic girl, um, uh, who is like a seer in a way, and the Ephors speak, translate what she says because she speaks in kind of whispers and whatnot, and she basically says like, if you march into battle, you will die and you will lose. But the forest, tells like he's not allowed to anyway because of this holiday that's coming around, and this in per tradition they're not allowed to go to war under this holiday. But of course, Leonidas defies them. But lo and behold, Dominic West's character, Theron, and the Ephors were bribed by another Persian, military personnel who offers them gold, Persian gold, essentially, in order to pretty much usurp uh, uh, Leonidas' word, essentially. At least try to stir things in the Persians' favor. But of course, Leonidas being strong-willed and knows, what, because he doesn't want his people, all his soldiers being slain, and the women, children, elders being put as slaves. Can't have that. So he takes 300 of his best Spartan soldiers, and most of them who are, like at least the ones who have not only like the who's still like virile and strong, but also had sons already to carry on their legacy. But those who do not have sons, they are left home, uh, essentially to hold down the fort. So at least have Sparta can still have some level of protection regardless. So just 300 of them, and so he says his goodbyes to Gorgo, but she gives him her necklace and mentions to him like, either come back with your shield or on it. So he marches on, and along the way they meet up with some Arcadians who wants to at least a decent group of them to add to their ranks, because they know what Xerxes will bring to the Greek lands. So they offer some assistance, and of course Leonidas kind of scoffs and asks the soldiers. This is one of the most iconic scenes in the film. He asks he asks, each one, like, what you do? I'm a potter, sir. And you, baker. And of course, the Spartans start snickering. And of course, then you get like another iconic line when Leonidas asks his fellow Spartans, where is it? Is this it? Um. Crap. Where is it? Where is it? Sorry. Uh.
Spartans! What is your profession?
God, that's awesome, man. Like, it's such iconic lines from this film, and I just want to hear that again. Let me hear that again, cause that is just like, uh,
Spartans! What is your profession?
and of course this is like like honestly, this is like masculinity at its finest because it's like this, like oh god, you know, all dudes is like just like built like just like diesel and it's like ready to like just fight for their lands, and it's like they got the typical weapons, their xiphos, their spear, their shield, and they're like there are like some uh you know armor pieces that they would wear, like their the bronze cuirass, but in the film they all just like you know they got like you know some not shorts, but I don't want to call it a skirt either, but they got some leggings on, but they're pretty much like just just mostly just body and with a shield and helmets. But man, it's just badass. But they bring him along like to Leonidas. He doesn't say out loud, but he knows he probably needs the help, and they're offering, and they're willing. Let's do this. But of course, they're not Spartans. They don't have the same mindset as them. So as a few of them scout ahead and see, the Persian camps, the Michael Fassbender's character. I can't believe Michael Fassbender is in this freaking film. I did not even know this. You'd be surprised how many old films you look up and see big stars in them as like tiny bit parts. It's crazy. But he's like super geeked up and excited, and like the what's the dude Draxus, Daxos looks at him like are you mad? And it's like don't worry, Arcadian. I'm just thrilled for battle. It's like, he is psyched because the Spartan mindset is like they want to die in battle. It's like a warrior's death. That is like very important to a lot of ancient warriors, like when it comes to samurai or Vikings, or even the Spartans. They got the particular unique mindset of like, I want to die in battle, because that is the highest honor for a warrior, and you can't help but respect that. I was like, I don't know how many people today will have that kind of mindset. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of military soldiers of today might have a bit of mindset like that, but it's like very rare because I don't know. I don't know any military brats out there personally, but I imagine that at least quite a few of them have that distilled warrior mindset of like, it'll be an honor to die in battle. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they all have that kind of mindset. But just like that level of like, oh god, I'm sorry, can wait to like, do this, to die on my feet, that kind of thing. I don't know if they got that level of psych, the psych up, the mindset, but the honor of dying for their country. I think any warrior will have that mindset, like like as long as you use honor and respect that comes with it, because I'm dying for a higher purpose than myself. So then they fight off some Persians, and because they realize, okay, they got the larger number. So what they, going to do is use this pass on Thermopylae, where it's like it kind of, because they kind of use their, Leonidas is smart, like he's leader for a reason, where he, just like with the wolf, he leads this massive army who has the numerical advantage into this little narrow passageway where they have no choice but to, funnel in a particular way where it's like gives the numerical inferior force the advantage of just chopping them down little by little. And for a while, it's been working. And then you see Leonidas meets up with this deformed Spartan soldier who's been following them. His name Aphiletes, who in historical record is just like Benedict Arnold or Judas in terms of infamous people who are known for betrayal. And of course, and I gotta mention this since I'm bringing it up, I know this is just Zack Snyder's little point of view and his own interpretation of things, or matter of fact, even with Frank Miller's interpretations, look upon it today, it seems a little like messed up, but he kind of, excuse it in a way, because the Persian army, there's, a lot of them looks like normal people, but like when you see the immortals, because like the Persian immortals are a famous military sect in the Persian army in the past, and you see them wearing these masks, and when one of them comes off, they see like kind of grotesque monsters, and they got these kind of big, grotesque dudes that look like that deformed person in the Goonies. It kind of looks like that, and it's like, man, I can't imagine, certain Persians who saw this movie back in the day. I don't know how many of them thought that was kind of, I won't say like, counsel Zack Snyder or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of them would look at that like, God, that is kind of offensive in a way. But, it's an interpretation, and of course they view like, these people as like kind of like the bad guys, so they they are depicted as kind of like evil guys, so you don't feel too bad. And then of course this betrayer, who will ultimately be betraying Leonidas and his group, is depicted as a deformed creature, which I've tried to look it up and see if this guy was actually deformed, if he was cast out. I guess he was, not perfect by Spartan standards when he was born, but I guess he kind of I guess Snyder kind of leaned further into that and make him super deformed, where he kind of looks like some Quasimodo type of dude, where his parents saved him from being cast away, and they kind of ran away from Sparta to raise his kid. So he grew up, his father taught him how to fight, wield a spear, and he gave him, before he died, gave, Alphates, like I said, I'm butchering these Greek names here, Alphates, his, Spartan weaponry. And Leonidas looks upon how he wields the spear as like, oh, it's pretty good form. Yeah, it's like, but he asked him, okay, I'm going to need you to try to lift your shield. And because of how deformed he is, he can't not lift the shield properly, which is one of the most important things as a Spartan. And Leonidas, feeling sympathetic, is like, look, sorry, I can't use you. You know as well, being Greek, and your father should have taught you this, But you know as well as I do that the most important thing is the shield and it's part of our infantry. If one is weakened or missing or whatever, that will destroy the entire wall. I can't have that. But I can't use you in the fight, but you can still lay back, you know, mend to the wounded or and pass on water. You can do that. You can still. He tried to like make sure offers something for him to do because he's still one of them. I'm not sure historically if Leonidas was, sympathetic to the actual person because I don't know how deformed he was in history. He might have just had some kind of like limp or something. I'm not sure, but it kind of super exaggerated in the film. But regardless, you know, Alpha T's, feels like, spurned. He feels betrayed, so he decides to get his get back, and goes to Xerxes, and this gets really kind of borderline. I want to say borderline. As you can argue, there might be some offensive moments here, but he goes to the campgrounds of Xerxes, and you see this kind of goat creature, blowing, pipes, or at least, using a flute or blowing like a smoke pipe or something. I'm not sure. It's very weird. I'm not sure if people just hallucinating and thinking that's happening, but there's like, a bunch of belly dancers. A couple of them got like scars on their faces, but Xerxes, cater to this guy's ego. It's like, oh, they cast you out. They look at you like all deformed, and they. But I can use you. I can give you everything where they would not give you nothing. All I ask you is to, bow down to me, and I'll give you women, coin, and a spot on my army. And so, Alpha T's, bows him and tells him like, hey, I know a way around all this stuff, so you can go through this, direction, so that way you can get past their line. All the while, you see, Leonidas and his crew fending off a lot of Xerxes' forces, like these mystics, where they kind of just throwing like glorified grenades at them, but it kind of clay pot kind of grenades, but it called like mystics. But fending off their war elephants and rhinos and their immortals. And FYI, they weren't really immortals, if in case you're wondering. The way they call them immortals because they have like a whole army full of these immortal class warriors, and whenever one of them falls, they are quickly replaced. So whenever an army goes up against a person, they always think like, oh, these guys supposed to be dead, but they keep coming back, kind of thing. But we look upon it through historical records now, we learn they just keep replacing whoever fallen and taking the immortals off the field, so they always think like, oh, they just keep coming back, but they just being replaced. Anyway, so Xerxes decides one last time, like, going in person, and this dude seems like a tall dude, and of course this is just cinematography, just pure to make it seem like this guy is taller than beyond anybody else, and clad in like gold rings and accoutrements and stuff like that. And it's like, places hands on his on Leonidas' shoulders, like, I'll give you power, I'll give you the world, like I give you the lands, and like all those who will bow down to you, if only you bow down to me. And of course Leonidas is not like having any of that stuff. So the fight continues. Eventually, uh, you know, most of this, most of Leonidas' crew is starting to lose members. The captain loses his son. He gets end up getting beheaded. Uh, he's going through some kind of like warrior's madness. Like he doesn't give a crap. You know, he has like other boys back home, but the fact that he still lost his son, he losing it. And it's for his firstborn more than, and his firstborn on top of all that. So, uh, he's ready to risk it all. But the Arcadians are like, we're not ready to die. We need to go back home. We need to regroup and things like that. But Leonidas tells them, "There's no falling back. We're the front of the line." It's basically like they're like the Army Rangers, essentially. Like, no, we're the first in line. We will die here. There's no going back, despite their forces being like whittled down and being betrayed by the deformed guy. Leonidas then goes to Delios, who lost an eye in battle, but he tells him, "I'm gonna need you to go back home, give my wife this necklace back." He doesn't give like hey, tell her I said this. No, he doesn't do all that. He's like, she'll know by the necklace. No words need to be said, kind of thing. Because it's something very important in cinema that we scarcely have recently. Just the stoic, or how people would interpret it as like emotional intelligence, where it's like, no, like he doesn't need any kind of crazy outbursts or emotional kind of tears or anything like that. No, it's like she knows what it is. Like, I don't need to say much. Like, he kept his composure. It's like, this is a sad moment. You can tell just by the way it's being performed. It doesn't need to be tears, but it's like, it's a solemn moment. He knows he's gonna die on this field or this cliffside or wherever, but he needs you to go back, give it to my wife so she'll know. But he already said what he needed to say when he last I saw her. Just like, live well and have many children and be a good woman, kind of thing. And that way, because he knows they're gonna die here, and they use that to his advantage because they die as martyrs. So that way, people back home know what they did here, so word will spread and it will hopefully rally a massive army, which it does. And it's crazy, the amount of forces come back to fight against Xerxes. Well, back at home, you see, like I said, like Gorgo held it down. She's trying to get the politicians to agree to send their forces to help her husband and his team to fight against the Persian army. And of course, Theron is like, of course, he's a traitor. There's a lot of traitors involved in this film. And Gorgo is told by a person she trusts in the political landscape of the Spartan politics, explains that, since Theron is kind of like, the head person of this kind of thing, you need to needs his help in order to gather the politicians together to make this kind of agreement. And so she tried to cater to his ego one night, but then he showed his true colors. Let's just say he kind of took advantage of her in lieu of trying to get his assistance. But then, when she's trying to get them to send more soldiers out, he completely goes back on his word, calls her not so nice words. So she takes one of the soldiers' swords, stabs him, and he drops a pocket full of gold coins of Xerxes, showing his betrayal of his country. And nobody likes a traitor. It's like obviously no civilization in history ever look favorably on traitors. That's why, like, there's still quite a couple of countries that still do firing squads when it comes to, people betraying their country. You don't have to like it, but there's a thing, and it's like I can't feel bad because, like, depending on the situation and the context, you can't really feel bad because, like, there's a serious thing. People don't take that lightly. So, like, I don't feel bad for this little smuck, on the things that he's done in this film. So, she gets her forces. But then, Leonidas and Lasso's crew take on Xerxes after Leonidas takes one of his spears and chucks it, and proving this dude mortal by showing him he can bleed like the rest of them. It didn't kill him, but it took off a few rings and ripped it off, and he starts bleeding. And they're all fighting while also being pelted with, arrows. And Leonidas and his crew die on the field in the most badass way possible. And of course, if you ever wonder, I have to look this up because I was always wonder what happened to that, traitor Spartan Ephialtes. Of course, after historically, after everything's all said and done with the battle between, like, Greece and the Persian forces, there essentially was a bounty put on this guy's head, and he tried to run away, but he ends up getting killed by somebody else for an unrelated thing. But some Greek emissaries still pay the people as thanks anyway because they wanted to do dead regardless, because of him, things went pear-shaped with the 300. Just so you know. Anyway, so at the ending scene, Delios rallies a massive, almost, it looks like it ranks in the millions. Maybe not millions, but it looks like millions. But you could say it's like in, like, maybe 10,000s area. I think that's probably more fair because Sparta's, the country is, only so big. It's not like the United States or anything like that. But let's say, like, it's like 10,000s, like up to 10,000 maybe. But it's massive enough to really give Xerxes, like, a real fight now. And that's where the movie ends. And of course, there's, like, a sequel, but the story runs kind of parallel to the 300 movie. But I will get to that in a few minutes. But that was 300. Highly recommend. This is like a guys film, in terms of, like, everybody who plays their part very well. Honestly, I cannot think of anybody who was a weak link. Everybody done an impressive job here. The cinematography was on point. I'm pretty sure there's a few cons here and there. Like, more so, there's kind of like what's the word? Nitpicks. Like, the way, like, certain parties of the Persian forces are depicted to be, like, grotesque monsters. The whole goat thing was kind of weird. And then, of course, like, even on the Spartan side of things, the Alphors look like just deformed, dudes with, blisters and boils and stuff like that. It's like, I know where Snyder was going for it, but like I said, it was made way back in 2006. So it's like, we got away with a lot of stuff that probably shouldn't have, but it's still fine. It had, like, a budget of $60 million and raked in at the box office at the time $456 million. Highly successful. Remember when the budgets were reasonable in for a film and not ballooned to out the wazoo? And then having, like, nearly $500 million being deemed still successful and not just okay or because not everything needs to break in at $1 billion at the box office. Like the Hollywood is kind of weird with their budgets and box office numbers. It's kind of gone crazy now, and nobody has no simple. Well, a few exceptions here and there, like Godzilla -1 and the first Deadpool movie is like perfect examples of reasonable budgets, and you'll come out at the end with successful box office numbers to justify it. It's like, matter of fact, we need like some kind of accountant or something that can tell everybody where where each dollar is going towards to justify it. Because the bulk of the money can't just go to like the A-list star and to justify it or anything like that. No, it's like you need a reasonable budget so you know exactly where it goes to justify why it need to cost that much. Because if it doesn't justify it, you don't get it. So you can like have some kind of reasonable movie budget. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, that was 300. I will see you guys in a few minutes as I cover the sequel, 300 Rise of an Empire. So if you like this film, if you've seen it recently, it's on Hulu. So let me know what you guys think of the film. If you remember or if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. And I will see you guys in a little bit. Take care. See you guys later.